we continue to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like we did when we were children. Our fast, our prayer, our dhikr, our recitation of the Quran has hardly advanced from our infancy. Yet our diet has advanced, our knowledge has advanced, our bodies have advanced, but our worship has remained the same. And this is unacceptable, because we would not accept baby formula to eat now in our 20s and our 30s. And if anyone here is unlucky enough to be in their 40s, nobody would accept that. And so how do we advance our worship? How do we elevate and propel our worship to a higher level? And that's precisely what last week's session and this week's session is all about. It's all about how to improve our worship, how to improve our fast, how to fast a better fast during the month of Ramadan, the fast which is aimed at purifying our bodies so that our actions are pure. The fast that is supposed to purify our hearts so that our character is pure. The fast which is supposed to purify our minds so that our thoughts are pure. The fast which is supposed to purify our desires, or our nafs rather, so our desires are pure. And that's what will be covered, inshallah. What was covered to some extent last week, and what will be covered to a greater extent this evening, inshallah. Before we begin, we just remind ourselves of the basic etiquettes. And the first and most important mindset to observe is that we bring the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is with us and that He sees us and that He hears us. And that we are here to benefit ourselves before benefiting anybody else. The advice that is given is being shared and being given directly. Feel and think that Ustadh Harun this evening is speaking to you directly and not to anybody else. And take those words on board in order to act upon and to apply in your lives. The format, as you know, is a nasiha followed by Q&A and followed by a group dhikr. And afterwards, inshallah, there will be some snacks. So I hand over to our esteemed Ustadh Harun, inshallah, who will be sharing this evening's discourse.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين صدق الله العظيم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا محمد واغفر غير غافلين السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته والسلام علينا وعلى عباد الصالحين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. From the day a person is born until the day a person takes their last breath, one of the first things you are trying to grapple with is the question about who are you? Now, in today's society, in today's world, if you look around you, a vast majority of the issues that we find among people, specifically around people identifying themselves based on their race, based on their color, based on where they're born, based on their language, based on the type of preference they have of music that they like, based on the football team that they support, based on the school that they went to, based on the postcode that they went to. All of these, so from the time that you were born and as a child to the time that you die, all of these are aspects in which, and they show that the human being has his need to know who are you. And so the Mashayikh mentioned that if you're interested and you want to know who you are, then firstly you need to know how to know yourself. Now, if you want to know yourself, there are two broad ways. The first is you have a mentor, a spiritual doctor. So that's like, if you want to know your health, your physical health, what do? You go to a doctor. What does the doctor do? He tells you, makes assessment, and then he says, this is the condition of your health. But let's say you don't have access to that. That's the first way of getting to know yourself, of your health. The second way is introspection, where you deeply reflect on yourself. So the Mashayikh mentioned this, Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi gives a story or a lesson. He says that there's a lion, and this lion, he grows up among sheep, and the lion ends up believing that he's a sheep. And so when another lion comes into the herd, he runs away, thinking that, oh, this lion's going to eat me. So then this lion is he's a bit concerned. He's like, what's wrong with this lion? So he grabs him, and the lion's saying, oh, don't eat me. He's even more concerned. He's like, oh, what's wrong with this? So he takes him to the riverbank, and he shows him that look at your reflection and look at mine. We are one of the same. And so what Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi is explaining to us, that in sometimes we need somebody to remind us who we are. And that's what the role of the prophets were, and that's what the role of the spiritual doctors were. They are people who give an assessment on your health, on your spiritual health, on your condition, and then they can help you improve that. Now, obviously, not everybody can afford private healthcare or doesn't like to go to see the doctor. So what do they do? They go up online and they read up health and fitness. And sometimes when you're ill, you Google something and you read the symptoms, and most of the time it says that you've got cancer, right? So you do DIY. So in that way, you also can do this with yourself, which is introspection. It's a skill that you can also introspect. But the problem is that because we don't introspect, we think we are the person that we show to everybody. We think that we are the person that we show people, the person that we are outside of the house, the person that we are when we're in front of people. And if you convince yourself to think that is the real you, then you've duped yourself. Because the real you is not what you show people, the real you is what you hide from people. That's the real you. And that doesn't mean, that means when you're alone and nobody can see and that only you know about something, and that thing that you do in private, that you consciously hide from others, that's the real you, not what you show. There's a story, there's a great saint of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, one day he used to pray at a mosque in Damascus. And he had this desire that he wanted to be appointed as the chief trustee of the mosque. So what he thought was, the best way of getting trusteeship is if I pray in the mosque and I pray lots so that the chair people see me praying. So he would pray, and he would pray extensively. Now years went on and nobody was approaching him. So he became sick of it. He's like, look, I've been praying in this mosque, but nobody has approached me for position. So he says, sod this, I'm going home. So he goes home and he's reflecting and he's thinking, you know, what I'm showing people, that's not real. That's not real. Why? Because I'm not really doing it for Allah, I'm doing it for the people. But I don't do anything in private. So he had this thought, he goes, you know, all this time I'm doing it for people and they're not doing anything for me. So he says, you know what, tonight I'm just going to pray at home. And when I pray at home, I'm going to pray and I'm going to sincerely turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm going to make dua to Allah that, oh Allah, you know what? I'm not interested in the trusteeship of the mosque anymore. I'm not interested in it. And even if you give it to me, I'm not going to take it. Because I'm not interested. I realize these years I've just wasted on trying to catch something that's not you. But guising myself that I'm a good person, I go to them, but realize I wasn't doing it for you. So he prays that night. And then the next day he walks into the mosque. And as he walks into the mosque, the trustees are there and they've just come out of a meeting. And they're saying, we need to find a chairman for this mosque. Who would be we can't think of anybody who would be good. And they see him walking at the exact time, just as they come out of this meeting. And they said, what about this person? So they approached him and said, do you want to we've been discussing among ourselves, and we can't come to resolution of who we'd like to trust, but we remember that you come to this mosque, we want to appoint you this position. So the saintly person, he says, at that moment, I realized one thing. He said, I introspect, I looked in myself, and I realized that all this time I worshipped Allah for other than God. I presented myself in one way to the people, but that wasn't me. And I worshipped for years. But I just did one night of private worship, one night where I was just me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And from that, Allah has brought what I wanted to me, just like that. So he said, imagine I commit my life having a sincere relationship with Allah, what would I get then? So he says, no, he says, he goes, I took an oath by Allah, I'm not going to take the trusteeship of this mosque. And so this is to signify that actually, when I say, who are you, what you're hiding, it doesn't necessarily mean that the bad things, but it also means those hidden good things. There are many, the Mashayikh mentioned that every person should have a secret with Allah, a hidden good deed, a secret deed. Maybe a deed that they're not even fully aware of themselves, those types of deeds that you don't think about. But you should do something in private. Yes, there's certain deeds, there's certain good things that you can do in public, charity, helping one another. There are things that you can't do in private, but you should do something that's completely private between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So going back to this concept that if you want to know yourself, you have to introspect. Okay, you have to reflect. So I want you to all close your eyes. And I want you now to reflect on what are the hidden things that you hide from people. I want you to think about all of those things that you would not be comfortable about telling others. All of the things that you covertly, with consciousness, you hide from the sight of other people. Now I want you to open your eyes. So the couple of seconds that you spent closing your eyes, you have got now more insight into yourself than you did before. Because before, we were just assessing ourselves on what we present to people. But actually, what's hidden is the real you. That's the real you. So Ramadan is the month by which a person introspects. And Ramadan is about purification. It's about purification. Now, you can't purify something if you're not aware of it. And so what the first step is to be aware of those hidden matters. Because if you just assess yourself on how you're dealing with people, then you're no different to a person who goes and Googles their symptoms and it says, yeah, you're okay. But you haven't gone to the doctor. The doctor tells you your condition. You don't just sit there and diagnose it. In most of the cases, we're told, like I said, we've got some life-threatening illness. But in this case, we think that, no, we're fine. So Ramadan is about purification. And so in order for us to purify, we first have to know what is that hidden aspects of ourselves. And that hidden aspect of ourselves sometimes comes out. Yes? That hidden aspect of ourselves comes out. And where does it come out? It comes out in our private life. It comes out sometimes in our interactions with people. As an example, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he has a qawl. In his saying, he says that it's not money that corrupts people. It's not fame that corrupts people. It's not power and authority that corrupts a person. It just reveals what was hidden in them. That what was hidden in them came to surface. If that person was an abuser, he was an abuser before he had the position. If that person was greedy, he was greedy before he had money. If a person was untrustworthy, they were untrustworthy before they had the authority. All these things do is reveal. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, among the months, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mandated a month. And that month, among all months, is one of the most blessed months. And that month, the significance of that month is a reckoning of yourself in order to attain taqwa. And taqwa is a hidden matter. It's a matter between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't tell necessarily who has taqwa because it's a hidden, it's between the servant and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But like everything has a sign, everything has a sign. Iman has a sign. Piety has a sign. Taqwa also has a sign. And some of those signs are outward, but we can't say for certain somebody has taqwa. But we can see signs from a person. So the Mashayikh mentioned there are 3 signs. The first sign is that firstly that person has a beautiful, firstly that person, no harm comes from that person. Nothing. Not from his actions, not from his speech, not from his sight, not from his thoughts, not from his or her emotions, not from his or her thinking, in any aspect of this person. Morally, physically, psychologically, no harm comes from them to anybody. The second sign is that only goodness comes from that person. That goodness comes from his actions, his or her speech, their dealings with people, their thinking, how they think about others, their emotions, how they deal with their emotions with others. Only benefit comes from them. And finally, that they are in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That doesn't just mean with people, but that also means in private, that in their privacy, in their hidden lives, that they realize that they're not alone. That Allah is watching them, Allah is hearing them, and Allah is with them. Now, it's very difficult to tell who has that and who doesn't. And that's why taqwa, the signs, some of them are for you to think about whether you have that. And if you don't, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mandated this month. And this month, the objective of this month is taqwa. The problem is if we're not clear about what the objective is, then it's like signing up for a course and you sign up to learn Arabic and you came out proud of yourself because you picked up Urdu. You'd say, yeah, it was good that you attended, but you didn't obtain what the course was trying to teach you. So we're learning 2 things here. The first is we need to come to grapple and first know ourselves, because without knowing ourselves, you can risk selling yourself short in this life. What does that mean? Just like that lion thought he was a sheep, just like this phone is sophisticated. If you think that this phone is to be used for a doorstop, you can use it for a doorstop. I mean, my phone looks like it's been used for a doorstop. It's got cracks in it, but it wasn't made for that. Why? Because it's more sophisticated. It's got a screen, it's got silicon, it's got an internet connection, it's got chips in it. But you are way more sophisticated than this phone. So why are you using yourself as a doorstop? Why are you living a life of no different to an animal. Eat, sleep, have children, build your portfolio, educate yourself, learn. These are all things that animals do. They don't separate us from animals. Animals do it at their level, but there's something more to life than that. So taqwa, as we said, Ramadan, the objective of Ramadan is taqwa. But the how is the most important part. If the objective is taqwa, if the objective of going to an Arabic course is to speak Arabic, then the question now is, how do I do that? Now, what do we normally do? We normally, what's the common associated things? What do we do in Ramadan? Tell me, you can mention, what are some of the deeds, what are the type of things that we do in Ramadan? Pray Taraweeh, mashallah. I'm not going to ask how many rakats because I don't want to start a debate. But yeah, let's say pray Taraweeh. Anyone from the sisters? And don't say make samosa, please. Someone said pray Quran and read namaz, mashallah. Yeah, go on. Anyone else? Watching fundraising videos. Yeah, some, mashallah, that's it. Everyone wants to, donate to Jannah. Donate to get your place in Jannah. Mashallah. But I'm not saying this is bad. This is, all right, yeah, this is what people do. Anybody else? Sorry? Someone said the obvious, that you fast, mashallah. If you didn't fast, I'd be concerned. Mashallah. Anybody else? Come on. I'm waiting for some more. Is that sadaqah? And what about Quran? Does anyone read Quran? Yeah, Quran. Okay. So we do all these deeds. Now the problem is, doing these deeds are good. But these deeds are not addressing your hidden self. That's the problem. That's like finding out you have cancer and then you go to the pharmacist and you take lots of vitamins. That's not going to cure your cancer now. You're going to have to get specialist help. And most of the things that are hidden in us are entrenched in us. They're not one-off things. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to hide them. They're just one-off mistakes. But often those things that we're hiding from people, and I'm talking about the negative qualities, are things that we're habitual on, but we don't know what to do with them. So we just resort to hiding them. But it would be silly if you knew you had cancer to hide it. Why? Because that's not going to help you, is it? You need to get help. So doing all of these good deeds is like I said, having all these vitamins. But the problem is it's not changing you. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions in today's society. That somehow if I go to a course, if I come to a gathering like this, if I go and learn lots of Quran and I learn Arabic and I learn and I go to speeches and listen to podcasts and watch YouTube videos, that somehow I'm going to change from this. But if that was the case, then everyone here would be, I'm not talking about you, brother, sister, mashallah, you're good, but the Muslim community would be among the most pious of the pious of the pious of the pious of any nation. Why? Because we have more access to audio lectures, more podcasts, more videos. We have more hadith than the Sahaba. We have more knowledge. We have more access to knowledge of the Quran, the tafsir. We have 14 years, 100 worth of scholarship. And it only requires you to a couple of Google searches to get some of that. So why isn't it that we're able to be pious? Why is it that we're not able to be? Why is it that we're not able to be people of taqwa? Why isn't it that we have these traits that only goodness comes from us, only no evil comes from us in any aspect, and we have the presence of Allah? Because those are the signs, right? So if we're not achieving those signs, if we're not achieving those KPIs, then something's going wrong with the process. And every year Ramadan comes and we try to do a DIY. We try to maybe read more Quran. We try to go to more Taraweeh. We try to maybe pray more. But guess what? There's no change. And if it's change, it's short-lasted change. So something fundamentally is going wrong with our Ramadan. And what's going wrong is that we haven't recognized that there's a difference between learning and installing that information in you. They are two separate things. It's like somebody who wants to learn to speak Arabic. In fact, how many people here have attempted an Arabic course? Because then I'll know you'll understand this example. Okay, quite a lot of you. Okay, so you'll know this. You can go to a 3-year Arabic course and learn all the grammar and learn all the specifics on when to apply grammar and how to read. But when you go to a shop, you don't know how to ask for milk. So you've learned it, you've studied it, but what's the problem? You didn't practice. And it's not practicing once, because in courses, yeah, you practice here and there. Why do people go to Egypt? Why do people go to Arab-speaking countries? Why? Because they realize that they don't need to practice on 1 day. They don't need to practice on 2 days. They don't need to practice 3 days. They need to repeat it every single day until it becomes the new normal for them. And that is when Arabic becomes installed in you. Another example. You want to learn to cook. Well, you can watch all the Jamie Oliver and you can watch all the Gordon Ramsay or whatever TikTok videos that now show how to cook. You can watch all of them and you ain't going to even know how to make an omelette. Why? Until you try it. Watching ain't going to help you. Watching is not going to teach you. It might tell you a couple of things, but you'll only develop the skill of cooking when you try and you fail and you try again and again until that becomes installed in you. So we're learning a very important distinction. That if you want to become something, it's not about learning it. It's about doing it repeatedly, such that that thing now becomes installed in you. Now, the opposite also applies to the opposite case. What's the opposite case? I have something installed in me that I want to get rid of. I lie, I backbite, I have an addiction, I slander, I gossip. I have all these qualities that I know I don't like about myself, but I just give in to my environment. I give in to the temptation. I just can't. I've done it so many times that I do it unconsciously now. So the Mashaykh say, okay, the opposite applies to this. What's that? Every time that you have the opportunity to do it, resist. And you resist it once, you resist it twice, you resist it 3 times, and you resist it however many times you want to do it, however many times you have the inclination to do it, you resist until the temptation gets uprooted from you. Now, no longer that's uninstalled from you. So this concept of installing and uninstalling, it requires constant repetition. That's the key, repetition and resistance. And this concept that we're talking about, this is one of the hidden wisdoms behind Ramadan. Ramadan is 30 days, depending on when the moon sighting is. I'm not going to go open that can of worms, but roughly it's a month. Yes, it's 30 days. And those 30 days, the wisdom the Mashayikh mentioned is that it's a training program. It's a training program. It's a training program of purification. So what do we mean by that? The word "som," this is a problem with the English language because it doesn't translate well. At the moment, you'll read "som" as fasting, but fasting is it's an English word, and not often fasting means what? To not eat and drink. Okay, but that's actually not what the word "som" means. "Som" was used in the Arab tradition to explain that when the Arabs wanted to train their horses for battle, they would restrict them of water and food so that they become battle ready, because camels, obviously, they were built for the desert, but horses weren't. So to prepare them for battle, to prepare them for that training, they would do this thing called som. And the purpose of it wasn't just not, restricting food and water. The purpose of it was so that the horse was trained for battle. If the horse is not being trained for battle, if it's not coming out of it stronger, then the som didn't work. It weakened the horse. So this is giving us insight that Ramadan, the concept of som, isn't about being hungry and thirsty. If you think that Ramadan comes so that we can experience hunger and thirst and we can feel what poor people feel, okay, mashallah, you don't need to fast for that, okay? Some of you only just need to skip 1 meal to feel that. So it's much more than that. It's a training mechanism to achieve something. And that's what Ramadan is. Ramadan is here to achieve that quality of taqwa through purification. So now the question is, okay, you've talked about knowledge isn't going to help me. Why? Because knowledge doesn't change you. You can learn, but it doesn't install in you. It just sits in your conscious brain. That, yeah, I've come to this session and I've heard some good words, but that doesn't make me pious. I've got to go away and do something again and again and again until it's installed in me. So now what we should be asking ourselves is, if Ramadan is about obtaining taqwa and fasting is a training to obtain that, then how do I increase my level of taqwa? Because it can't just be the fast. So what we're going to cover now is those levels, okay? To make it practical for people, the mashayikh have devised levels. Those levels help me and you so that every year when Ramadan comes, we can pick a level and say, I'm going to try to do this level of fast. And every year we should be improving. We should be improving. We should shatter this idea that Ramadan is just about, getting hungry and going to Taraweeh. These are all modes of training. Every act of worship is a mode of training. Salah, it's a mode of training. Jama'ah prayer is a mode of training. Fasting is a mode of training. All of these practices are mode of training. And if there weren't a mode if you think the Salah was the objective, then you've missed the point. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, I curse 5 people that come to the mosque. Allah mentions this, and it says, mention to the Prophet mentioned to the people that 5 people who enter the mosque, they might be thinking, oh, I'm getting close to God, I'm coming to Jama'ah prayer. Allah is saying they're getting further away from me. Why? Because they come to the mosque, they come to the prayer, and they somehow think that if I have prayer is going to fix everything, that I come to the prayer, but I'm not concerned with changing myself. And the 5 categories are someone who's addicted or on gambling, somebody who is entrenched in fraud. Now, that doesn't mean if you do this that you're cursed when you go to the mosque. No, these are people who have this mindset that somehow my worship is separate and my dealings with people are separate. No, that your prayer is your meeting with Allah. It's like meeting somebody. It's like going to court and you're saying to the judge, oh, guide me on the straight path. I'm innocent, help me. And then the judge sees that you're just two-faced because he can see the camera and he can see what you're doing outside. That's called being in contempt of court, where you think the person you're speaking to is stupid. And so that's what Allah says, I curse these people because they come to me, they come to the mosque, they even make the effort to come to the mosque, but they don't make effort to change themselves. So what we're going to be covering now is those levels, right? Inshallah, can you see the screen? Is this okay? Inshallah. Right. So we're going to be covering the levels. Now, everybody who's in attendance will have the opportunity to actually, there's a sheet there that we'll be giving. You can actually embark and start this process. And hopefully you'll feel and see an actual difference in your Ramadan, in your fasting. So the first level you can see on the screen is level 1. Level 1 is which is what all of us, alhamdulillah, are already doing, which is not eating and drinking, hopefully, right? MashaAllah, somebody mentioned that that's something to do in Ramadan. I'm glad somebody knows that. Performing the 5 daily prayers and also to pray Taraweeh. So that's like the base level, which most people for their whole lifetime, they'll know about, yeah? So this inculcates some aspect of taqwa. Why? And we feel it when Ramadan comes. It's easier to let go of bad habits. And that's just the blessing of engaging in these acts of worship. But does it end there? It can't end there. Why? Because when Ramadan goes, we're resorting back to our habits. So there's something that we didn't take away, is it? If you can only speak Arabic in the classroom and then you go outside after and you can't speak a word, then you didn't take it with you, did it? Did you? It didn't benefit you. So how do we get to that level? Level 2. So level 2 is to now, on top of not eating and drinking, this should make you more conscious of your speech. So to observe the sins of the tongue, the eyes, and the feet. Now you might be thinking, what are these sins? So these sins are, as you can see on the screen, The heart has 7 organs that come into it. The 7 organs are the tongue, the eyes, the ears, the hands, the feet, the stomach, and the private parts. And depending on how you use these organs, the condition of the heart changes. Now, just like everything has like a bank account, you know, if you want to know how somebody's their wealth, you look at their bank account, their assets. If you want to look at somebody's physical health, you look at their blood sugar levels, you assess their health. So if you want to look at someone's spiritual health, you look at their heart. And the thing is, me and you can't look at each other's hearts, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at the heart. So what is the heart? The heart is where taqwa resides. That's where a person's taqwa is developed. And it's also where a person's taqwa is removed. Okay? So when we're praying, we're doing tarawih, we're doing salah, and we feel a difference and we experience a difference, that's because something has entered you, and it's not entered your stomach, that's at iftar, it's entered your heart. Okay? But that also means there are things that remove that from your heart. And these are the channels in which that things can either enter the heart or are removed from the heart. So that is the tongue. So the things of the tongue, that's backbiting, lying, slander. That removes, darkness enters the heart. Similarly, how you use your eyes. If you use it for zina, you look at bad things, that also affects your heart. Your ears, what you listen to, backbiting, and entertaining tales, eavesdropping, that also affects the heart. Feet refers to where you go. If you go to bad places, it's going to affect you. So similarly, the feet can also cause darkness from the heart. The stomach, meaning what you consume, not just food, but the rizq, how you earn your money, that is also considered how it affects your heart. And similarly with the private parts. Now, all of these aspects affect the heart. So when we say fasting, we mean to fast from the first, or the second level, is to fast from the tongue, the eyes, and the feet. So that means you're given a sheet. I don't know if it shows it here, but you're given a sheet. Isn't this changing? There you go. You're given a sheet like this. And what this sheet does is we spoke about how to install something in you. And what this is a mechanism on how to install these qualities in you. So what it's going to do is, if you really, like you said, you want to know yourself, get one of these sheets and ask yourself every day, just like I asked you for 1 minute, close your eyes and ask yourself what you do, what you hide among people. You do that every day for 1 minute, and you do that at the end of the day. And what you ask yourself is, did I commit any of the major sins of the tongue, the eyes, and the feet? That's level 2. Okay? And if I did, I put a cross and I start again. Meaning there's 30 days in here. But if you didn't, you put a tick. And that means that one day that you're fasting, you are also fasting from these sins. So what you're doing now is you're installing the quality of truthfulness. You're installing the quality of not backbiting. You're installing the quality of using your eyes correctly. You're installing these things over time in Ramadan. And hopefully by the 30 days, you would have uninstalled the things that you don't like, meaning these bad qualities, and you would have installed good qualities that you can take away from this Ramadan and actually live your life for the rest of the year. So that when the next Ramadan comes, you can accelerate, because remember, Ramadan is an accelerated training. You know, what I'm talking about, purification, is this restricted to Ramadan? No, it's not. Shouldn't you be doing this all the time? So then Ramadan is what Allah has mandated, has made obligatory for the whole ummah, because that's how important it is. It's like going to an accelerated Arabic course. You go there because you're going to get accelerated progress. So when you leave that training course, even if you do 1 or 2 sessions, you can keep it up, you can develop it. But that in that 1 week acceleration, you've achieved a high level. And so that's what Ramadan is. We should be taking away that. So here you'll have a sheet, and the sheet will have different levels, and it has the list of the organs. And what you can do, for those who want to self-assess, you can, every day that you've not, let's say, you haven't backbited, you haven't committed any of the sins of the level 1, you can put a tick. And for those that you do commit, let's say one day somebody annoys you, you swear, you know, everyone's hangry during Ramadan, then you put a cross, and what you do is after Ramadan, you make up another fast, but spiritually, meaning that you make up that fast, but also try to restrain from committing these sins. Do you understand? So it's not making up the fast in terms of, oh, that fast is not valid. Of course, we're saying, yes, you didn't eat and drink, the fast is valid. But remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like we mentioned, Allah curses these types of people that come and pray. Allah also says that, subhanahu wa ta'ala, that I don't accept the fast of the one who doesn't fast from ill speech and lying. So that should be telling me and you that prayer, meaning fasting, is not about just letting go of food and water. It's actually letting go of these qualities. You know? And so Ramadan is about this. And being a Muslim is about this, because the Prophet ﷺ was asked, what is the best of Islam and what is a Muslim, best Muslim? And the Prophet ﷺ said, and I'll end on this, he ﷺ said, the best Muslim and the best of Islam. Imagine, if I asked you, what's the best part of your life? You're going to look at all of the years that you've lived, and in view of all of that, you're going to pick the best part, okay? So imagine how vast Islam is. Imagine the vastness of the Prophet ﷺ's knowledge. He answered both questions. What is the best of Islam and what is the best Muslim? Imagine all the different types of best Muslims, the different categories of Muslims. He, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said the definition of a Muslim, right? And I want you to take this away. The definition of Muslim, he didn't say those who pray 5 times a day. He didn't say those who fast. He didn't say those who perform Hajj. He said the best Muslim and the best of Islam is he who others are protected from his or her tongue, and he who others are protected from his or her hands, that no harm comes from them in their speech and no harm comes from them from their hands. That's the definition of a Muslim. And if you're praying and you're fasting and you're going Hajj and you're going Umrah every year and you still are doing these things, then know that the definition that you're following, or I'm following, people like me, that was the definition of who? The munafiq. The munafiq are those who go to prayer. The munafiq are those who are first in line. The munafiq were those who were with the Prophet ﷺ. The munafiq were those outwardly, they said, yeah, we love Allah, we love the Prophet. But inwardly, their actions were the opposite. So if you, going back to the beginning, if you really want to know yourself, then I invite you all that make this Ramadan a different Ramadan. Make this Ramadan an opportunity for you really to truly experience change. Make this Ramadan the day that you start and embark on the journey, on the most fascinating journey. And that journey is a journey onto yourself. That is the journey of knowing yourself. Because unlike the things that you do and the jobs that you like and the music that you might like and the books that you read, you are the most interesting thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. You are the most sophisticated thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. If you're impressed by ChatGPT, then you should be impressed by the ones who created it. You are more sophisticated than the tech that we can create. You are more sophisticated than the planes that we develop. Why? Because you, human beings, were behind that invention. So it shows that there's much more to ourselves and our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It starts with knowing yourself. So I invite you all that after this session, after the dhikr, you're welcome to take a leaflet. We also teach a course of purification. And that course of purification doesn't, just like we've described, it has a process. So I mentioned, we only mentioned 2 levels, but there are 8 levels, 8 different levels. You know, it goes through the different organs. The second level is the fasting from the eyes and the hands. The third level is the ears, the hands, the stomach, and the private parts. And then there's even higher levels. So how to fast from even bad thoughts, how to fast from bad qualities, and then when you get to the really high levels, to live your life as though you're living a life that Allah is watching you, hearing, and is with you. Now these sound nice, and we've heard it all before, but I'm talking about doing it now. And that's what I want everybody to focus on. Now actually do it. Because if you're going to go away from this, and if you're going to go away from this speech, and you're going to go away and you're going to attend these gatherings, that's good, but it's not going to change you. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the tawfiq. It's mentioned, Allah doesn't change a person until they want that change for themselves. So we need to start demonstrating that we want that change, and Ramadan is an opportunity for me and you to do that. So I'll leave it there. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik wa nashhadu wa la ilaha anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. I believe we have 15 minutes for Q&A. So inshallah, if you like to ask any questions, you've got 15 minutes, inshallah. Yes.
So there's different levels of the spiritual fast. How do you advise people? What should we start from? Which level should we start from?
MashaAllah. So for those who are new to the spiritual level, so the brother asked, how do we know what level to start on? So for those who are new, obviously you know yourself best, right? So let's say you're not, the first level is to pray 5 times a day. And for those who can attend Taraweeh prayer, to attend those. And then obviously the basic conditions of fasting, okay? So if you're struggling to do that, then I would advise starting there. But if you're okay and you're doing that, and that's been all of your Ramadans, and you're aspiring to something greater, then look to level 2. Level 2, you can look at the sheet and it says, these are the 3 organs, and here's a list of the sins. Now try to monitor yourself. And what you'll become more aware, you become more self-aware. Yes? Now, we offer a free mentoring service as well. So like I mentioned, there's 2 ways. You either introspect, and that's fine, you can use the sheet and you can benefit, or you can go to a doctor. And the doctor, the benefit of going to the doctor is to have experience. You know, just because it says, let's say I realize I have a backbiting problem, it doesn't mean I know how to get rid of the backbiting problem. Maybe it's a specific person, but I'm relating to them. So what do I do? Maybe it's a specific environment that I'm in, but I can't escape the environment. So what do I do? So all of these practical problems, you need advice on. Just like if you have a health condition, we go to the doctor and we say, oh, can I fast? I've got this health condition. You don't do DIY, do you? So in the same case, the mentors, if you want a mentor, you can come to the front after the class. You can express, I think you can mention to Hafsa, if you put your hand up, you can approach Hafsa and give your name, and we can allocate you to a female mentor for the sisters, for the brothers, if you're interested. And that person is like a life coach. That coach is coaching you through Ramadan, but this process isn't isolated to Ramadan. It's extended throughout really your whole life. If you want to develop this, because taqwa is not restricted to Ramadan, it's the definition that you should be aspiring for in your life, to have these qualities. So they can help you like a life coach. It's free of charge. There's no strings attached. Most of these mentors are busy people. They do it at the volunteering of their own time. But for the pleasure of Allah, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they help and facilitate for others. And they're highly qualified. These are people who have gone through this process. They've gone through these sheets. They've gone through, structure. They've gone through their own mentors for years. We're not talking about 1 year, 2 years. We're talking about 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 20 years. Okay? So you're getting, very good quality support for nothing. But that's for you to take. So for those who are interested, you can give your name to Sister Hafsa. And for those on the brothers, you can approach Brother Abdullah and you give your name. And again, before Ramadan, you can have a frank chat with the mentors, completely confidential. And they can also assign a level for you if you're not sure about what you can do. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yes? Yes.
Whichever level you're looking at,
yeah.
whichever organ you want to do. This is say you break one of them.
Yeah.
You lie back
Yeah.
what should you do?
MashaAllah. So brothers asked a very good question. He said that let's say you find yourself in Ramadan and you break one of these rules. Say you swear something, you do something that breaks one or violates it. So the first thing you should do is not get hopeless. Okay? So not to be hopeless. Michael Jordan, and I use him as an example, he says, the reason why I'm such a good player, because I made thousands of misses in the finals. And that's what made me good. Why? Because he made mistakes, but he learned from them. He didn't sit there and think, I'm never going to be anything. The mindset of hopelessness is shaitan's mindset. You do one bad thing, that's it, game over. But the Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given many examples that even if you do 1,000,000 bad things, you carry on, you try. So firstly, don't let hopelessness settle in. Secondly, you do tawbah. Tawbah, that's its own topic, but to summarize, you make a sincere resolution in yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some say you can do 2 rak'ah nafil, and you make intention after that, you can make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you make effort, meaning that let's say there's a certain means. Let's say you watch a bad program or you're with somebody and you, I don't know, do something that you don't like, then you make effort to cut that means. And that's your way of saying, oh Allah, I'm actually making effort. Not lip service to say, oh Allah, you know, it's like somebody who has an eating problem, yeah? He likes his food, but he doesn't make any effort not to go to food shops. And every time he goes to the food shop and he eats, he's, oh Allah, I've given in. Okay, well then don't go to the shop. If you're really that shop, don't go anywhere near that shop. Don't even walk on the same road. That means it takes longer to go home, it takes longer to go home, but that's your price that you're willing to pay. It shows that you're sincere. So nobody said it's going to be easy, right? So the same case is this, that for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you make tawbah, and you basically, tawbah is when you violated a right, you want to give that right back. So if you violate a right of Allah or right of a person, then you give that right back. If you've harmed somebody, you should ask for forgiveness from them. If you can't ask for forgiveness from them for whatever reason, maybe it's awkward or whatever, it might cause more problems, then at least you can generically ask for forgiveness and make dua for that person, right? If you can ask for forgiveness, you should ask for forgiveness. If you violate the rights of Allah, then also you should do tawbah and then ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. But in all cases, do 2 rak'ah, make sincere intention and make effort not to return back to it. Then if you return back to it again, even in spite of making effort, then you do the same thing, tawbah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that when a person does tawbah like this, because he's sincere, he's not giving lip service and saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it, and he does it again. It's like having that annoying friend that always comes late. I'm that person for my friends, okay? That's why a lot of you are nodding, and you're like, I know. That annoying person that always comes late and then apologizes and comes late again. He doesn't make any effort. He's just lip service. So the same case is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that with this person, Allah mentions tawbatan nusuh, that his sin, whatever he's done, I convert that into a good deed. So you're sitting there getting hopeless, but Allah's saying, well, all of those sins, they bring you closer to me. And that's phenomenal, because nobody would do that. You know, think of any relationship that you do. Can you imagine any relationship where you rob or steal or backbite or slander somebody, and then after you say sorry to them, they're going to say, oh, you're even more closer, I trust you even more. No, they're going to be like, okay, I forgive you, but I certainly don't trust you. Right? The relationship becomes disrepaired over time, especially if you do it once, twice, 3 times. After 3 times, forget it. Forget 3 times, forget it. After once, most people can't tolerate it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, completely unique relationship. Yeah? Yes?
We have a question on YouTube. The question is, Assalamu alaikum, question from the sisters in my house. When women are on their monthly cycle, they don't fast, therefore don't pray or fast. What can sisters do to ensure spirituality remains and taqwa remains whilst in this state?
MashaAllah, it's a good question. So it's mentioned, number 1, prayer is part of that. But obviously for those who can't adhere to the basic conditions due to their health and their condition, then they can focus on the organs. I mean, you can still do that, and you should be doing that outside of the prayer. And you should be doing it outside of Ramadan. So they can continue to do. There's a level 2 and level 3. Level 2 is to not commit sins, or to monitor the sins of the tongue, fast of the sins of the tongue and the eyes. And then level 3, I think, is the other organs, so all 7 organs. So they can look at those and focus on those, and they can still obtain taqwa in this month, even if they're unable to fast. So there's no problem in that. It doesn't mean for that time period you go crazy. Okay, it means that you should also still be training for taqwa.
Mentally, we're approaching Ramadan with the intention to make changes, we know what to do. But what if we're struggling to feel the actions that we're trying to perform, like lack of connection perhaps? How do we address that during the month?
MashaAllah. So that's a very good question. So the brothers asked, we know what we need to do, but I don't feel a connection. This goes back to what I was mentioning. Knowing what to do and doing it are 2 different things. So let's take the example of this room. This room is pretty warm, isn't it? Or is it just me? Okay, so this room is very warm. Now, Iman is like this heart. The heart is like this room, okay? And your deeds and worship is like the heat in this room. If the windows are all open, does it matter if you turn on the heating? Why? Hot air goes out. Why? Because it doesn't retain it. Okay? Even if you've got a blazing fire in here, okay, fine. But over time, you open all the windows, heat will leave. It won't stay here. So our approach is, let me do lots of big good deeds. I'll wait for the 27th night and I'll do 50 rakats of salah and the whole khatam of Quran, and then I'll get my way into Jannah. Or what I'll do is I'll donate on that night and I'll get that advance ticket to paradise. And then the rest of the year I can be a devil. That's not how it works. The Prophet ﷺ said, do good deeds. The best of deeds are those that is consistent, done regularly, even if it's small. Why? Because it affects you. It's installed in you by doing that. It's not about doing big good deeds once and that's it. It's like earning £1 million and then you can't learn how to save. What's the point of that? We call that new money in this age. People who got money and then they spend it and they go back to being poor. There's no point in them being rich. So learning how to save, so same case with Iman, learning how to build. So your question is, why don't I feel it? It's because we're opening the windows. That's the problem. We're doing Taraweeh, we're doing all of this, but because we haven't monitored our hidden self, that hidden matters that everybody is aware of. I don't need to tell you, you know about yourself. I know about myself. Those hidden matters, because we haven't addressed those are like the windows are opening. And those windows are left open. And what we're doing is we're just exhausting ourselves trying to do lots of good deeds. And that's why we don't feel it and it leaves us. Do you understand? So what this is getting you to do is incrementally, if you start with the level 2, level 3, by just practicing at this level, even doing a small amount of worship now, if the windows are closed, you don't have to turn the heating up very high now, do you? Why? Because it builds and it will eventually get hot. Why? Because the heat will be retained. So that's like Iman. Iman will be retained within the heart. And that connection that you're seeking starts to form. Do you understand? And so that's where we're going wrong. If you're going to focus on worship and thinking doing lots of worship is going to get me a connection, you've misunderstood what it means to be connected to Allah. Connected to Allah means that you have installed a quality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in themselves. When you become truthful, you're connected to Allah's truth, al-haq. When you fast, you are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's al-hayy al-qayyum, because Allah doesn't eat and drink. When you are communicating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you are connected to Allah as al-mujib, the responder to your du'as. When you are not backbiting others, you are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who doesn't backbite their servants. So every quality that you install in yourself is a means of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this idea that I do transactional things and I connect to Allah because I've done lots of worship, you've missed the point. It's like being fasting and all you've obtained is hunger and thirst, is what the Prophet ﷺ said, that there are people, they fast and all they get is hunger and thirst. They didn't get the qualities. So does that make sense? So the solution is actually doing the sheets, and you'll see that grow over time. Don't think that it's a sudden thing that suddenly from 0 to 1 million you're going to achieve a connection. No, but you're going to build on it. That's the difference. Do you understand? Okay, inshallah, I think that's all of the questions we can take. If there's anything else that anyone wants to ask, inshallah, myself, the other teachers will be around. You're welcome to ask on a one-to-one basis. We'll be around after the dhikr. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. I just also want to mention that the teachings and methodology that you've learned today was formulated by one of our teachers called Sheikh Ahmed Dabbagh, and they're a specialist in teaching people and training people on how to become pious. Like we said, those spiritual doctors, that's what they specialize in, purification, tazkiyah. And so I was speaking to them on the way here, they're unwell at the moment, but they mentioned to give their salam to everybody. So I give their salam and for all of you, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Jazakumullah khairan, Ustadh Harun, for that incredibly beneficial reminder. And perhaps for most of us, if not all of us, the best charge, spiritual charge, and direction and instruction before Ramadan begins. We move on, inshallah, to the dhikr. Or before I mention the dhikr, we do have the sheets which were mentioned, which will be handed out after the dhikr, inshallah, just not to interrupt us. And the sheets have a picture. The sheet has a picture with, it's an A4 fold out with the picture of the 5 levels and the tick sheet in order for you to monitor your progress and the level which you choose for this Ramadan. As Ustadh Harun mentioned, you must choose one level for this Ramadan, inshallah, stick to it. If you're unable to complete the entire month without any breaks, then say, for example, 5 days, you have 5 or 6 days after the last time you failed, and then you manage to maintain 5 days at the end of the month without violating one of the organs, such as the tongue or the eye, then you have the rest of the year to make it up, inshallah. And then if Allah wills that your life is extended to witness the next Ramadan, then you can do the level up or the level up from that, inshallah. So now is time for the dhikr. This is a group dhikr, a loud dhikr, and just some basic etiquettes that during the dhikr, follow the brother who is leading, inshallah. Do not let your voice exceed their voice or go higher volume than their voice, and maintain the same rhythm and the same melody that the lead is going at. If Brother Abdullah at any point goes silent, continue with the dhikr. He'll need to take a breather, obviously, or take a sip of water during the dhikr. And most importantly, we remind one another of the 3 keys. The 3 keys are to remember that Allah is with us, and that Allah sees us, and Allah hears us. Now this dhikr is remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He said, أَنَا جَلِيسُ مَنْ ذَكَرَنِي, I am the companion, I am the company of the one who remembers me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, whoever remembers me in themselves, I remember him to myself. I make remembrance of him to myself. And whoever makes remembrance of me in a gathering, in an assembly, I make remembrance of him in a greater gathering and a greater assembly. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remember us and to make remembrance of us. And we hand over, inshallah, to our brother Abdullah, inshallah. And if I can ask for the lights to be switched off. And the lights being switched off is just to aid with focus and concentration.
If you wish, you can stand up, 10 seconds, stretch. For 1 second, sorry about that. So you can stand up, take 5 seconds just to stretch and sit back down, inshallah.
Brothers, please do move forward. Alhamdulillah, we do have some late arrivals who are coming. Please fill all the way up.
Sit down now, inshallah. So the mindset that one should maintain throughout the dhikr is that Allah is with me, Allah is watching me, and Allah is hearing me. If it helps, one can imagine Allah's name in bright white light shining from above, and from His name light is penetrating our hearts and everybody at this gathering. And this is only to create a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين والفريقين من عرب ومن عجم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم هو الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته لكل هول من الأهوال مقتهن مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله 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 لا إله 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 إلا الله 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 Allah أول آخر يا الله ظاهر باطن يا الله 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 حافظ ناصر ها الله حافظ ناصر ها الله 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 أنت المولى أنت الحق ليس المولى إلا هو أنت الهادي أنت الحق ليس الهادي إلا هو الله 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 حسبي ربي جل الله قلبي غير الله نوري محمد صلى الله لا إله إلا الله 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 لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الذي لا الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد ذو الجلال والإكرام وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد ذو الجلال والإكرام ذو الجلال والإكرام ذو الجلال والإكرام اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. I request Ustadh Rahim to make the closing dua, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر صدق الله العظيم. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك ولعظيم سلطانك. يا ربنا لك الحمد كله والشكر كله. اللهم يا ربي بجاه سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اجمع بيننا وبين سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله في الدنيا قبل الآخرة في الدنيا قبل الآخرة في الدنيا قبل الآخرة في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم. اللهم اغفر لنا واختر لنا يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اغفر لحينا وميتنا وشاهدنا وغائبنا وصغيرنا وذكرنا وأنثانا يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. يا أرحم الراحمين. Allah, accept this gathering from us, Ya Rahman Rahim. Allah, forgive us for our ill intentions, our wavering thoughts, our minds, the sins that we commit with our tongue, our eyes, our our ears, our rest of our bodily organs and our hearts and minds, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Allah give us the ability to internalize the nasiha that we've heard today and last week and make this the best Ramadan, a fruitful Ramadan, a Ramadan that we return to you and never turn away, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen. Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, Allah, we are your forgetful, ungrateful servants, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Forgive us for the times we forget and we are ungrateful, when we are ungrateful, Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah. Make us tongues wet with your remembrance and your praise and your and gratitude towards you, Rahman Rahim, Allah. Allah, we thank you for allowing us to be amongst the ummati of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the best of ummahs, Ya Rahman Rahim, Allah. For no deed or for no action or for no thought of our own do we deserve guidance or to we have been blessed with such a blessing, Ya Rahman Rahim, Allah. Allah bless our mashayikh, Ya Rahman Rahim, Allah. Those who have passed and those who are living, Ya Rahman Rahim, especially our Master Sayyidina Ahmad Dabbar. Ya Arhamar Rahim, Allah preserve him and help him through all his difficulties, Ya Rahman Rahim. Allah, Allah, we are undeserving of your bounties, Ya Rahman. Allah, we beseech you for your mercy and your kindness upon us and upon our families, upon our parents, those who have passed amongst our parents and grandparents, forefathers and foremothers. Forgive them, Ya Rahman Rahim. Allah, forgive us present and Allah, make our progeny that comes from us pure and servants of yours and defenders and proper and representatives of your beloved Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Allah bless this gathering. Allah allow this gathering to benefit all of us and those who intended to come. Allah bless them as if they came. Allah Rahman Rahim. Allah, those who are here, Allah bless us abundantly, Rabbal Alamin, Rabbal Alamin, and finally internalize this nasiha, Ya Rahman Rahim, Allah. Some of us have heard this many times, Rahman Rahim, Allah. Make this be the time that instills within our hearts and minds, Rahman Rahim, Allah. Ya Allah, forgive us, Allah, forgive us, Ya Rahman Rahim, Allah. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك ولعظيم سلطانك سبحانك اللهم بحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون سلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. You can turn the lights off, inshallah. There's plenty of snacks, so we have plenty of time. We don't need to vacate until 9:30, so please speak amongst yourselves. Enjoy the snacks. I believe